Today's podcast is brought to you by Chikara Wrestle Factory, 4711 Wingate Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where they specialize in lucha libre, korosu, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling, all built into the curriculum at the Wrestle Factory, where they strive to create the most well-rounded performers active today. Hey, yo. Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And to make it a little bit more interesting, we're shooting for 100 subscribers on YouTube, so we'll be giving out random shout-outs to our new subscribers as we try to reach that goal of 100. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. This episode, we got a whole lot to talk about, starting with Impact Wrestling. It's not often that we get to start with some excitement with Impact Wrestling, but we do this time because Impact Wrestling has announced a partnership with AAA down in Mexico to bring the 15th anniversary of Slammiversary and the 25th anniversary show for AAA, Triple Mania. Both will include both Impact Wrestling and AAA stars. This is huge because, as you know, Jeff Jarrett has been trying to promote all these cross-promotional agreements and deals with all these other companies to really bring some of the best action to the audience and try to get away from this this promotionalized way of approach to booking. There are certain talents in AAA that right now are under long-term deals and are not going to be free agents to come to TNA Impact Wrestling anytime soon. Same thing goes for a lot of the TNA Impact talent who would really put on some great matches with some of those AAA stars. So, at this particular event, Lucha Underground talent, for instance, is going to be allowed to appear on Impact, but they can't be in their Lucha Underground gimmicks. Conversely, Bobby Lashley, Eddie Edwards, Davey Richards are the three so far that have been announced that will be going to Triple Mania. There will be a TNA or Impact Wrestling Championship match that will take place at Triple Mania. So this is a kind of a cool partnership between the two brands as they're going to try to really put the press on to have a great interpromotional setup. And I actually appreciate this. As I said in a previous podcast, I think that the talent level in Impact Wrestling is at one of its highest points that it's been in a lot of years. You don't have just one guy who's a legitimate star. You actually have several that you could build storylines around, and the AAA promotion has just as much talent. They are very much loaded top to bottom with lucha libre style talent as well. And those matches you could put on between the Impact stars and the AAA stars hold the promise of something spectacular, because a lot of the Impact stars, the Eddie Edwards, the Davey Richards, the people like that, have worked a fast-paced style of match like in Ring of Honor when they were there previously, and places like that in New Japan. And this is really going to be an opportunity for Impact Wrestling fans to see something to see very often. AAA is a phenomenal promotion. They've been around for a very long time now. You know, this is the 25th anniversary of their big show, and they really have cultivated a great product. So it'll be nice to see some of that on Impact Wrestling television, and likewise for the fans in Mexico, it'll be nice to get some exposure for Impact. You know, I'm not going to ever say that any company is going to rise up and challenge Vince for superiority in the wrestling world, but it would be nice to see somebody step up and really just present a product that he has to be a little worried about. You know, obviously he's never going to be scared he's going to lose the battle again like WCW, but I'd like to see him sweat a little bit, and it would help push WWE to come out with some better creative ideas. Speaking of WWE, their 205 Live show this week was actually pretty solid top to bottom. The show kicked off with Akira Tozawa defeating Tony Nese. It came after a distraction from Brian Kendrick. I think it was planned to look like it was going after Tozawa. It ended up costing Nese his match, and after the match, Tony Nese attacks Brian Kendrick, which led to what I consider to be one of the funniest things I've seen in quite a while, which is Akira Tozawa laughing it up on the side, telling Kendrick, that's lesson number 3, you have to have eyes in the back of your head, much the way the Brian Kendrick has been doing with him for the last several months. And it was really boring the snot out of me with Kendrick doing it, but with Tozawa throwing it back in his face, really made this segment. The next part of the show had Rich Swann and Noam Dar and Alicia Fox all intertwined in this love triangle that's been going on. Fox comes out, she shows her true colors. She thought Dar was going to be the new face of 205 Live, and that's why she was willing to go for him, but she's not really into him. And it leads to a thing where she pretty much kicks him to the curb, and Rich Swann lets her in on the fact that his buddy Cedric Alexander's on the shelf, and she must have forgotten all about him, and that he pretty much sent her the gifts to show the world what she was really like. And he ends up leaving her standing in the ring all by herself so she could have a meltdown, which was absolutely hilarious. I obviously overly choreographed, but it's WWE. I thought it was pretty good, especially for a subordinate show like 205 Live. I want to talk a lot about this Arya Daivari versus Mustafa Ali match that came up next. And I want to talk about it for a very important reason. A few weeks ago, Arya Daivari and Mustafa Ali were pretty much nothing on the card, and they have been elevated to the point that they are given enough time to put together a pretty decent match. There's a segment in this match where Drew Gulak comes out doing his whole anti-high spot thing that he's doing, trying to destroy pretty much the only thing that makes 205 Live interesting, and that's his gimmick right now. But Arya Daivari and Mustafa Ali both deserve more screen time, but they're not positioned right now to be challengers for the Cruiserweight Championship, but they put on a pretty good match between each other. And what I feel like is if you look at the Cruiserweight division, I feel like it's the women's division 10 years ago. In that, you know, the 205 Live crew, the Cruiserweights, they get like 5 minutes a show just to shut people up on Raw and Smackdown and places like that. And even at pay-per-views, they get very little time. But the reality is they put on sometimes the best matches on the show. Now, I'm not saying that the women ever lit the world on fire with the best matches until the Divas Revolution, but they certainly weren't given the amount of respect that their quality of talent, especially people like Lita and Trish Stratus and them had. But now the women have taken a step up, rightfully so, into a good situation on both Raw and SmackDown. The tag team division on Raw has been pretty dominantly featured. Hopefully the SmackDown tag teams will be soon, but the Cruiserweights on Raw are still getting the shaft when it comes to screen time. And when you see a match like this with Daivari and Ali, it really tells you how great they can be. And if they were really promoted properly and allowed to go out there and really tear the house down, who knows how much people would get behind them. I'd like to make mention that if you watch the special on the WWE Network about the WrestleMania Axis, they had TJ Perkins going through with an interviewer, and they go up to the championship belt display where you can go buy your replica belts, and the only belt that was sold out was the Cruiserweight Championship. There is some promise in that division, especially since you're in a PG era where you're trying to market to children. They need to be pushing this in a different way. They need to be giving more time to those cruiserweights. The main event of the show saw Austin Aries defeat TJ Perkins in what was really a phenomenal match, back and forth. I love all the high spots, but I also love the pure mat wrestling. This really was like a throwback to those Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero matches in ECW. Like, this was really solid wrestling. And I know WWE hates that word, but that's what it's supposed to be, is wrestling. I understand it's entertainment, but we still are wrestling fans. This match delivered that, and at the end of the match, Neville came out, he put his belt down at the top of the entranceway, and he charged to Aries. The two of them start beating each other up. Of course, TJ Perkins makes his comeback, and now it's a 2-on-1 beatdown, leading to Neville putting Austin Aries into the rings of Saturn, and TJ Perkins just looking at him, which was a great way to end the show. WWE's actually booking 205 Live relatively well. They're just not giving them enough exposure on Raw. Cody Rhodes is in the news because he has spent the last year kind of being like the migratory game bird. You know, he like flies all over the country, all over the world. He wrestles for everybody, whether it's Ring of Honor, Ring of Honor, to Impact Wrestling, New Japan. I think Lucha Underground might be the only place he didn't go. He's been to the United Kingdom. He's been all over the world and did almost every independent you can think of. And now he's talking about how it's time to settle down. He actually is setting his sights on the Ring of Honor Championship, something he hasn't done yet until now. When he attacked Christopher Daniels at the last big show, you know, it was to set up his drive, his push to finally be world champion. And it would be great to see that. I think he really took a chance breaking away from WWE and going out on his own, and he's done a really good job with that. But I'd like to see him do something more substantial, and I think after Christopher Daniels was hyped up so much as being the man who finally got his championship in Ring of Honor, Cody Rhodes would be the perfect heel to take that championship away from him and really build an interesting storyline for the Ring of Honor fans. Godzilla Jax Dane, who is a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and I know a lot of people don't give the NWA Championship the due that it's had in the past years, but it's still something that's respected in the wrestling world to a degree, meaning that a lot of places look at it as the number one title for some of the independents, the smaller independents. Well, he is now going to be headed to Impact Wrestling for their next set of tapings. I'll be curious to see what his role is once he gets there. But he is another talent a lot of people are not familiar with. If you have never seen him, by all means, pop onto YouTube or somewhere, even though they're not monetizing videos anymore. Go on YouTube, look up some Jax Dane matches, and see what it is this talent that they're bringing to the company really can produce. I mean, he can put on some good shows. Jeff Hardy in the news today. The conversation about Whether or not WWE is going to use the broken characters, it looks like they are really working hard to negotiate this deal with Impact Wrestling, and at some point, I'm fairly confident they'll get the deal done and the broken characters will come to WWE. But I think what a lot of people didn't expect is it is all part of a bigger plan where Jeff Hardy is supposed to get a main event singles push. Matt Hardy, the concern is if they don't bring the broken gimmick is, what are you going to do with him once, you push Jeff? Jeff was a main event star before he left for TNA, and I think that the reality is Vince would like to get back on some of that investment and push him to the top of the card again. He wants to see him in the ring with some of their premier talents, like a Finn Balor, like a Sami Zayn or an AJ Styles or somebody like that in a WWE ring. Matt Hardy, I don't think Vince has ever had enough appreciation for Matt Hardy, but with the broken character and seeing the reactions they got at Mania and at Raw the night after, I think Vince is on board a little bit more now, and it would be nice to see Matt Hardy's broken character be able to be maximized to its fullest capabilities in programs with people like, Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton. Even him going against Finn Balor would be a great setup. So we'll have to see how that goes, but as of right now, Jeff Hardy is supposedly in line for a major push at some point. Other people in line for that push, it's obvious Braun Strowman is being pushed hard. He is going to be a force in the WWE Raw programming. The reality is he is their number one heel and their number one babyface all at the same time, which is thoroughly confusing. He just got his first piece of clothing on their shop, WWE shop. You can get a Braun shirt, which is really cool. I wish I had the cash laying around to grab one of those, but he's getting his push, and because Raw has to push their unstoppable monster, it looks like at some point this year they're going to do the same thing on SmackDown with Baron Corbin. Corbin has been built up pretty well. He hasn't been unstoppable. He's been beatable, but only against the top talents, and I think that's a good thing for him going forward. You could play the whole card of he was a young, fiery youngster when he got to SmackDown, and he has cultivated his talent. He's honed his craft, and now all of a sudden give him that main event push. And I think before the end of the year, there's a good chance we may see him in a severely important world title picture, possibly heading into the Royal Rumble. If I had to make a prediction, I would say Baron Corbin gets a shot at the World Championship at the Royal Rumble. I don't expect him to win it, but I expect him to be in the match, if not sooner than that. On the flip side is Dean Ambrose, who the rumor out there is that he may be being too lazy and complacent with his role in WWE. That's not good. Vince wants you to stay relevant, he wants you to stay active, and he wants you to stay interesting to the fans. And right now, there are some people in the back who think that the promo on Raw from The Miz kind of had some truth behind it from somebody in the higher-ups who are unhappy with his current production in the ring. And he really wants to work on that because the reality is a lot of people would love to see that Shield reunion, but how are you going to book that if you've got what some people perceive to be a lazy and complacent wrestler on the roster slowing down your product? We're going to get to our booking section of our 128-man tournament. We're going to give you our next 4 matches. Tonight's matches are somewhat exciting to me. We've got in the first match, Samoa Joe versus Taz. Second match is Rob Van Dam versus Rick Martel. Third match, one I would have loved to have seen when they were both in their prime, the Immortal Hulk Hogan versus Superstar Billy Graham. And Dolph Ziggler versus Kyle O'Reilly. I actually find all 4 of those matches to be very exciting to see who you guys choose to be the winners and move on in our tournament. We are getting close to the end of round 2. Round 1 seemed like it took forever. Round 2 is flying by. You guys are making some incredible picks. I can't wait to get to round 3. We're getting very close. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us in the next one where we're going to, as always, we'll cover all the news and rumors going on in the world of wrestling. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all our music and sound effects that we use throughout today's show. Today's podcast, as always, is sponsored by Beazle Games. They bring a new friend to family game night. It's easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. We encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you on your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. If you're looking for more news and rumors, go to our other website, the one where we do all of our articles we publish, www.tsjsports.com/WWE for all the latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. And if you want to catch our video podcast, that should be up later this evening. If it's just not enough hearing my voice, you can tune in and see my face doing all the same rundown that we did in this episode. So if you hung in there this long, you guys are awesome. Give us a subscribe, spread the word. Let's get the Pro Wrestling Podcast up to that 100 subscribers. That's what we're looking for. And we could not get to where we are today without the support of all of our loyal fans. You guys are amazing. I can't tell you how much it means to me to be able to bring something to you guys that clearly you guys are enjoying, and that's just awesome. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this episode. I will talk to you next one. Take care. Bye-bye.